Hello readers and writers of the internet, welcome back. So this is going to be my top 10 least favorite slash disappointing books that I read this year. And just before we begin, I do want to state this is nothing to go against the authors or anything like this. I never really, even my number one slot, like I don't hate per se, it's just like a strong disliking, but like, you know, this is just my opinion. I read these books, I didn't like them. That's all there is to it. Number 10 is the Shadow and Bone book by Leigh Bardugo. This kind of accounts for the entire series as a whole, but number 1 really wasn't my favorite because it was so trope heavy and I just didn't like that. A lot of people seem to love this series. I love the covers. I'm like, okay, let's do it. And then I read it, I was like, oh, okay. Number 2 was probably my favorite because it introduced Nikolai. I felt like it had a stronger plot, stronger characters. Number 3 was probably right up there with number 1. Not my favorite. I didn't hate the series. It just let me down. Number 9, A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. Now I know by this time a lot of people are losing their minds. I didn't hate this book. I actually gave it 4 stars. I didn't mind it, but it was so hyped up. And like this is everyone's like favorite book. Like they absolutely love this. And then I read it, I was just simply underwhelmed. It wasn't a bad book. It wasn't written bad either. I actually like some of the characters, especially Holland, I enjoyed. But it just didn't have that wow factor that I was expecting from it. The world and the plot I felt were cool, but there are a few places where it kind of like let me down, it dragged. I was like, is this what people have been kind of really ranting and raving about here? This book? Really? I don't know if I want to continue this series. Maybe if it like gets better or something. I don't know, but I do want to read her Vengeful, I believe, is the first one, Vengeful series. I do want to read that one next year, 2021. So I'll be giving her works another try. Don't worry, I'm not quitting on her completely. And like I said, I haven't even quit on this series completely. It was just a letdown. You by Caroline Kepnes. This book, it let me down too. I didn't hate it. I like the TV show better. I just didn't particularly like the writing style. It was kind of like a train of thought. Like within the same paragraph, you get 5 different thoughts, and I wish it was kind of broken up more. I did like the second perspective. That was kind of cool. But you know, a cool perspective doesn't really make a story or anything like that. I felt more connected to the characters because I loved them in the TV show, but in this book, I kind of separated them a bit. I was like, I don't particularly like these characters. I don't really know anything about them. So yeah, and I will not be reading the sequel because evidently the sequel takes out the second perspective, which is what made this book cool in the first place and so popular. I don't hate this book. I was just really hyped because I love the TV show. Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. If you've been watching me throughout this year, you know how excited I was for this book. I have been wanting to read this book for like years, but I never picked it up. I love the cover. I love the idea of the plot. I was like, this is gonna be so great. And it just let me down. Honestly, it did. I felt underwhelmed. I felt like there should have been a bit more with the kidnapping. I didn't like the mother in this, who is the main character. I felt like she was just awful towards her child that didn't get taken. Like at one point she even says that like, I wish you were taken and not my favorite. And it's like, what kind of mother would say that? Like, I get it, you're under a lot of stress, but I think at that time, like 10 years had passed or something like that. I just didn't like the mother. She was either too overbearing or too naive. Like I saw the twist from a mile away in like the middle of the book, and I still had to read the rest of it. It just, whew, I was just sorely disappointed in this one. I don't think I want to be reading other stuff from this author. I might, but I highly doubt it. Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. I actually remember that when this book first came out within the, hardback, I saw it. I couldn't really afford it, so I'm like, let's just wait till it comes out in paperback. But I love this cover. The plot sounded interested. It had a love-hate relationship. It was everything I was looking for. But even before I read this book, I was reading reviews saying that this book was disappointing a lot of people. And I still wanted to read it because it still sounded good. I read the first few pages of this, and I really liked it. I'm like, I don't understand why people don't like this book. And even reading, like, the first third of the book, I'm like, this is good. Why don't people like this? And then I hit the second and third part of the book, and I'm like, I understand now. There were so many things that just confused me, that came out of nowhere, that didn't really make sense. There were parts where the characters dragged, the plot dragged, the love-hate relationship, if you can even call it that. It was one of those where they hate each other, and then within the next scene they're kissing, and then it's like, oh no, but I love him. You know, it was like one of those. I would have liked to see a slow kind of progression of the relationship. Where I will say her love interest in this, who I just looked for the name, I couldn't really find it in here, but I liked him the most out of all the characters. The main character I was actually pretty annoyed by. She was kind of contradictory. One sentence it would be like, because she has, gods who give her power. She's like, no, we must obey the gods. This is the way. This is the only way. And then she'll kiss him. Then she'll be like, maybe there's more. And then within the next scene, she's like, no, this is the way. This is the only way. And I get having that conflict, but it happens so often and so quickly that it was like whiplash in a sense. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't like her. She annoyed me. The last third of this book, it was like boom, 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 boom. I couldn't breathe, but not like in a good way. It was like, what is happening? Is this what's going on now? Is that, like, at the beginning of this book, I loved this prince character, and then you get to the castle and they like talk to him, and she's like, oh, he's so awkward, and I never got that feeling from him. I'm like, there was nothing really that he did that was awkward, and he started out such like a strong antagonist, and by the end of it, like he wasn't that anymore. Like that kind of happened to all the characters except for one of them. I'm not gonna give it away or anything. It's just kind of a twist. But they all start out so strong and so powerful and so unstoppable. And then by the end of it, they're like, I don't know what to do. I'm just like, use your magic that you've been using throughout this entire book. What do you mean you don't know what to do? Like, come on. And like some characters, they disappeared at the end of the book. Like they're like, I'm gonna go scout or whatever. And they just never came back. It was never acknowledged. So I was like, what happened? What happened to them? But this ending, I like it in the fact that my favorite character kind of comes out on top without giving anything away, and I think it follows him more. Malachi's, I found it. I just remember that there was a chapter of book 2, and he was the narrator of it. Malachi's. Him, I love him, but he kind of like comes out on top. And I like that, and despite like the second book, following him a bit more, it looks like I don't think I'll be reading the second book, because this one was kind of a letdown for me. It just didn't do what I was hoping it would do. And Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. There's really not that much I can say about this book. Everyone kind of seems to be in agreement with this one. That it's not that good, no offense to her, but I have read her standalone book, Sorcery of Thorns, which I actually really enjoyed. This one fell flat for me. I've come to the conclusion that I don't particularly like the fae genre of fantasy. It's not my favorite at all. So that could have been one of the reasons why I didn't like it, but it wasn't the main reason. I didn't like the characters, I didn't like the plot. Like within the first third of the book, the plot is resolved and it's just like left, and they just kind of like do things and then create like more stuff. I'm just like, what? Like I felt like that could have been stretched out throughout the entire book, and it wasn't, so I felt like hastily like resolved, and I'm just like, no, there was insta love in this. I was like, please no. It started out strong. It really did, and it just fell flat for me. This is a beautiful cover, and that's mainly the reason why I wanted it. I'm like, it's so pretty, it looks good, it sounds great, and it just wasn't. But I do recommend reading Sorcery of Thorns from this author, because that one is actually a good book. The Merciful Curl by Margaret Owens. If you've been watching my videos for the past few months, you know that I've been struggling to finish this. First I had a reading slump, and then I did spooky season, so I kind of laid that off to the side. And then I finally finished it in November, and it let me down. I said it in one of my previous videos, and I will say it again. If I had read this book, like continuously, if I had not hit that reading slump, I would have DNF this 100%. The characters, they all had arcs and all felt like they were climbing, and then right when they get to the edge, it just stopped. They never resolved any of their arcs. They never really grew. The plot, it was the same thing. It was just run, get caught, run, get caught, run, get caught. Like after so many times, it's like we've been doing this. Like the same conversations were had, same atmosphere. I really wanted to like this book because the cover is beautiful. I really, really, really did. And it just let me down. And like I said, I would have DNF'd this if I had read it continuously. But because of those breaks, I thought I was kind of out of it because I had taken a break from the book. Looking back on it now, that wasn't really the case, and I actually had to use an Audible credit to finish this book because it was that like lagging for me. Honestly, I should have stopped before I got the Audible credit, but I was like 3/4 of the way done. I was like, we have to finish this, and I did. I was disappointed. I won't be reading the sequel. It just underwhelmed me. Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. This is another case, like Then She Was Gone, where I was super excited for this book. Been wanting to read it for years. Finally picked it up. I found it at my Books in My Own for like $3. Read it. Didn't like it. It was disappointing. It has a small town. That's the main thing. And there's a serial killer. I felt like if it focused a bit more on the serial killer and the journalism aspect of the book, it would have been slightly better, but that's not what happened. It mainly focused on the small town, the problems within it, and like the family issues, which is fine, but I think I talked about this in my reading rush, so if I can find that video, I will put it up there for you guys. But this takes the small town having problems to a new extreme. Like, I'm okay every once in a while to have a problem here or there, you know? But every single character was like, you know, oh, so innocent. And then, like, they would turn the corner and be like, I've killed a man, you know, or something like that. Like, it wasn't subtle. It was just like, this is almost kind of silly. And I don't like saying that because it does deal with such like heavy subject matter, and I do understand that the main part that I found silly involved 13-year-olds, I believe, like doing stuff. I'm not really going to go into it because that'll just make me rant again. I'll link the video up there. But they would do stuff and I couldn't take them seriously because they were 13-year-olds, and I do understand that kind of stuff does happen with 13-year-olds, but it was like one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, you know, I'm just doing this. Mother thinks I'm perfect. I'm just like, I felt like this could have gone like a different route, or they could have done this, but maybe if they took it a bit more like seriously and not be like, even the teachers are afraid of the 13-year-old. I was like, what? Like, are you being serious? You let the 13-year-olds like sexually assault another girl because the teachers are afraid of her? Like, that part I couldn't take seriously. Maybe if like the mother was like in a position of like power, was like the mayor or something, and they were scared of the mother. That would have made more sense, but that wasn't the case. And I just couldn't see fully grown adults being like, I'm terrified of this, you know, because they had done nothing like to the adults. They didn't really do anything to the adults. So I just couldn't take it seriously. It just let me down. I didn't like the mystery aspect. I didn't like the main character a lot. Didn't like the family. Didn't like the plot. It just kind of dragged. So yeah. Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. This is another book that I read for the reading rush. This was actually the book reading club choice that they had. I was just let down. Kind of like in Enchantment of Ravens, the main plot of this book is kind of resolved within like the first thirds of it, and then the rest is like randomness, and it kind of comes back here and there. But I was a bit harsher on the characters in this book for their actions and stuff like that than I was on YA books, because this is a adult contemporary book. So it follows adults who I expect to act like adults, but they don't act like adults. Like I described it there, and I'll say it again. Every single character felt like a horror movie trope. You know, you have the token black character who talks a certain way and acts a certain way and dances a certain way. You have the rich white character who talks a certain way, acts a certain way, is entitled. You know, you have this character, that character. Like they were all tropes. Like as I was reading them, I'm like, this is literally just a trope that I've seen a million times in like movies. It wasn't done well there, and it's not particularly done well here. I have seen a few people saying that that's what the author wanted it to be, was like tropes and like commentary on how people see, you know, white, black, whatever. This is a black author, by the way, but I didn't get the sense that that's what she wanted. It wasn't made that clear to me that it was commentary about how groups of people act, and it just disappointed me. It was tough to get through this book, which really upset me, or really saddened me, because it is by a black author. It does follow a black character, and the plot was racial based, and I was like, okay, this is going to be good. There's going to be a lot of commentary about the class system, about, you know, judging a book by its cover, and that's not at all what happened. And I was just like, it was painful getting through the book. I had to use an Audible credit to get through the book because it was painful. I didn't like this book, and that really, really disappointed me. I wanted to like this book, I really did. It just didn't do it for me. Characters didn't do it for me. The language didn't do it for me. The plot didn't do it for me. Nothing did it for me. It was just a no-go, honestly. And my number one least favorite / disappointed book, this one kind of falls into both those categories, and you probably know what it is. It is The Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. Oh my goodness, this series started out so strong. Even the second book, I'm like, okay, that was pretty close to the movie. That was good. And then we got this book. Oh my gosh. Not only was this a letdown for me, it was painful to get through. And that's no disrespect to the author or people who love this series, because I know a lot of people love this series. But this one, everything came out of left field. And it felt like Katniss wasn't actively doing things like she was in the other books. She wasn't using her intelligence or anything like that. She was being told what to do. She was made to do this. She was made to act in front of a TV screen instead of go out there and fight. She was knocked out for more than half of this book. And the main protagonist And I will be spoiling because I don't really care at this point, honestly. If you haven't read the movie, or if you haven't read the book or seen the movies by this point, I'm sorry, what have you been doing? But the main antagonist, President Snow, he's taken down off screen. Katniss does nothing. She's passed out. She wakes up and they're like, we got him. And she's like, how? And they're just like, it just happened. But he's here. And then he dies. I'm just like, what? Like, I felt like capturing Snow could have been the entire plot of this movie or this book, and that would have been so much better. And then the love triangle. Oh my, the love triangle. This is what I was talking about in my favorites book involving the Stormcrow. How I want a love triangle to be done, and how it is usually done. It's usually done like the Mockingjay, where you have a triangle. And these two, like this person over here, right? And then this person can't choose who they want to go to. So they toy with both of them every chance that they get. Then when they will go to this one's like, no, you've toyed with me. They go to this one, no, you've toyed with me. Then they go back, it's like, I love you again. And she doesn't even choose a guy. It's chosen for her. Because Gale is forced to go because he's a soldier to a camp. So she's left with Peeta. She's like, I don't have a choice. Let's do it, I guess. She doesn't even want kids with this man. Like, he's like, you want kids? And she's like, I guess. She has kids. And, like, there's no emotion to it. I get it. She's been scarred by the games. A lot of her spirit has been beaten out of her. But oh my goodness, like, it's miserable to get through. Not even in the sense that, like, you know, it's war, there's PTSD, like, not even in that sense of miserableness. It's just in the sense of, like, the characters, like, make me miserable. I just didn't like the characters, I didn't like the plot, I didn't really like anything about this book. I think I started giving it like 3 stars, and I think I bumped it down to 2. I might bump it down to 1, because the more I think about it, the more angry I get. And I really just don't like this book. And again, this is no disrespect towards Suzanne Collins. She is a leading pioneer of the dystopian genre in YA. She made YA popular, really. And other books followed, like Divergent, all those followed her and made the YA genre popular. I'm not going after this author. I'm honestly not. I am amazed at what she's been able to do with this series alone. Honestly, I am. And I do commend her for that. Not a lot of people can do that. Not a lot of people have. But this book, it hurts to think about. Like, it just makes me mad. Again, I'm not going to go into it because I will rant for hours and hours. I did do a review of this book that I will put up there. So, if you do want to see my full opinion of this piece, like broken down, go check out that video. But yeah, that is all that I have for you guys. Those are my top 10 least favorite / disappointing books that I read in the year 2020. This was an interesting video. It arose a lot of emotions that I didn't know I was still harboring towards books. So that's fun. That's really fun. Yeah. Thank you as always for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, as well as follow me on all my other social media accounts. It'll mean the world to me, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!